Join us now for more on the battle over the USMCA and the trade fight with China. Let's get to our Squawk newsmaker of the morning, White House trade advisor, Peter Navarro. It's been a while, Peter.
Good morning, Joe, my friend. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to have you on. You are quite a lightning rod. Do you realize that for the trade policies of President Trump? Whenever anything really hawkish happens or whenever he sounds a tone that causes the market to go down, it's always Navarro's fault. Do you ever waffle on your resolve to stay strong on this, Peter?
What I'm focused on today, Joe, is being a lightning rod for USMCA, and I think what's important to understand, Joe, is that in terms of the volume of the sheer volume of trade that we do with Canada and Mexico, it's over $1 trillion. It's actually almost twice as much as it is with China, and we actually export close to 5 times more product to Mexico and Canada than we do to China. So USMCA really is the big deal. We're hoping to get this thing done within the next 30 to 60 days. And today is going to be an important day talking to the people of America so that they can encourage their representatives to do the people's business when they get back to Washington.
I think that we'll stick with USMCA for a while, but hopefully we'll get to what I actually asked you about earlier. But just talking about USMCA, it's gotten a little bit better in terms of the prospects for the Democrats, I guess, maybe to support this, even though it would give President Trump a victory. That, I don't know, as we get close to the election, whether you better strike while the iron is hot. Do you think the chances have gone up recently with some of the things the Democrats have gotten with the USMCA?
Joe, this is a deal that does and should transcend politics. It's a unique deal because it benefits both farmers, ranchers, and manufacturers. It doesn't pit them against each other. There's broad appetite around the country for this deal. The big thing, the big obstacle really has been the fact that Congress has been in recess, and it's very hard for Ambassador Lighthizer to get the kinds of negotiations he needs to get this over the hump. But that's getting better. The president of the AFL-CIO went down to Mexico to get some assurances on the labor enforcement, and this is a great deal for America, and hopefully the Democrats will do the people's business on this.
Well, you've been in Washington for a while now. I don't know why you'd leave.
It's dog years. 2.5 years is about 20.
Why, and you had to leave. Some of us are leaving a place like this. You left Irvine to go to Washington. That makes no sense.
I miss my Pacific Ocean. Howdy, California out there.
Can you give me an honest handicap of whether this gets done before the end of the year? And you say, politics should be set aside. That's not going to happen. So what is the real? How would you really handicap that this gets done before?
I think this has to get done before the end of the year for precisely the reasons.
What are the chances it will get done, though?
I'm going to give it 100% here because it's so important for this country, and I can't imagine that Nancy Pelosi would not put this on the floor to at least have a vote. I mean, as you know, there's some progressive politics going on. They want to take our cars and our cheeseburgers, our private health insurance, raise our taxes, and then give the money away to illegal immigrants for health care. That's kind of like the far left. But I don't think that's who Nancy Pelosi is, and I think she is going to do the right thing on this and get the job done. And it is unique that all 50 states benefit. Farmers, ranchers, manufacturers are solidly behind this. And again, I go back to what the concept of this is, Joe. It's important to understand this. The centerpiece for me as the director of the Office of Trade and Manufacturing Policy is the domestic content rules, which push up domestic content to 75% in the USMCA zone. Right. And then strong labor protections, the $16 an hour standard plus environmental protections, get us a fair share of that manufacturing. So the vision of USMCA is to transform North America into the manufacturing hub of the world with the U.S. as the center of that universe. Who can not like that? So let's get it done. And I think the next 30 days are going to be critical to that. as Congress gets back. They only have so many days on the calendar, though. It's really interesting how little they work, at least back here in swampland. So, you know, I'm going to be very optimistic about this because it's so important to the country.
Okay, you've made the comment that when talking about China, anything that you don't hear directly from Lighthizer is fake news. But if you tell me something right now, can I assume that it's to the best of your knowledge, it's not fake news? What you're telling me?
So here's the two rules. The Lighthizer rule is that all negotiations take place behind closed doors and there's no leak to the press.
Okay.
The Navarro rule, and I've always wanted to have a rule named after me, is that if you don't hear it from Lighthizer, Kudlow, Mnuchin, Ross, or myself, it's likely to be fake news designed to part a fool from his money. And the problem, Joe, as you know, is it's a lot of mischief creeps into the news cycle to move the markets, and just so many times, as I've seen over the last year and a half, it's just wrong. And so let's be cautious here. For investors, I think, look, play the long game here, see the chessboard. What we're trying to get to.
Where are we? What's the chessboard look like in terms of what was agreed to in April and where the Chinese are right now for when, as far as you know, for how it starts going in October? Have they said, okay, you're right, we did agree to that, we're ready to come back and talk about some of those things? Or are they still way far apart and there's not much hope for getting close?
So you're asking me to violate the Lighthizer rule?
Yes.
All negotiations take place behind closed.
The Navarro rule takes precedence over the Lighthizer rule. Trump's the Lighthizer rule, so to speak. President Trump.
I'm going to, so trust in Trump, trust in Lighthizer. I think what's important here, if we're going to get to a great result, we really have to let the process take its course. They're coming here. Liu He, the top negotiator, is coming to Washington in October, and they'll sit down with Ambassador Lighthizer. And look, we know what the structural issues are. It's what I've called the 7 deadly sins. It's worthwhile to go over them quickly. It's the cyber intrusions into our business networks. It's the forced technology transfer in exchange for market access, the intellectual property theft to the tune of several $100 billion a year, the dumping into our markets, the massively subsidized state-owned enterprises, the currency manipulation. And the last one, the 7th one, is very, very important to President Trump. This is the made-in-China fentanyl and other opioids that they're coming into this country. They're going to kill over 100 Americans today. They're going to kill over 1,000 a week and over 50,000 a year. And just a couple of weeks ago, the Mexican Navy intercepted 23,000 kilograms of what appears to be fentanyl that was coming from Shanghai on its way to Toledo and beyond. And this is the kind of thing that's unacceptable. So we know what the structural issues are, Joe, but we also want market access there, and we'll have important, frank discussions about that, but that'll be behind closed doors with Ambassador Lighthizer. Okay. We should be optimistic, though, because I think the Chinese really do want a deal. They're getting hammered by the Trump tariffs. They're having to cut their prices, manipulate their currency down into the toilet, really, and they're losing their supply chain. I think, Joe, that's one of the most important things about what's going on here. I mean, they're losing their supply chain faster than you can say Trump tariffs. And I think that's good for the world economy. A more diverse supply chain is more resilient, and some of that's coming home, and that's good for America.
Right. But what is a more powerful force? I read the same article that maybe you're alluding to yesterday about we don't even know the extent of the damage that's being done to China's economy right now because we don't have the real numbers. So it may give the president more leverage in that regard. But we're also told that China can play the long game, and we know that President Xi's not up for election in November of 2020. So what is the more powerful force there? That their economy is worse, doing worse than ours, or that he doesn't have to worry about political concerns like President Trump has to worry?
So I'm not going there. Again, the Lighthizer rule. I think, look, the way I can best talk to folks in your audience today is to step back a little bit and look at all the things that I think are going to drive the macroeconomy. And Joe, you and I used to have talks all the time about what's going to happen in the economy. Here's what I see. I see that can be good. The passage of the USMCA. I see the Fed cutting rates. I see the European Central Bank cutting rates. I think if the Germans engaged in a fiscal stimulus, we'd see 500-point jump on the Dow in one day. That would be great for Europe. It would be great for U.S. exports. It would be great for the world economy. I see China already engaged in significant additional monetary easing, but I think they're going to do a second fiscal stimulus. So I see a lot of things around the world that are going to stimulate the global economy. And these are the things I think investors should be looking at. In the meantime, we need to be patient with the China negotiations, and we need to focus like a laser beam in getting USMCA passed, because there's a lot of good things happening. I mean, the Trump economy, let's be clear about this. Let's talk about recession. It's just silly. Trump economy is solid as a rock. We've got 157 million Americans employed. We've got 18 straight months of unemployment rate below 4%. Wages are rising, historically low unemployment rates for blacks, Hispanics, women, the disabled, and veterans. And my favorite, Joe, my favorite statistic in all of this is we've got over 1.5 million prime-age workers off the couches of despair back into the workforce. This is what the dream was when I was helping President Trump campaign back in 2016. To restore this country again to its greatness, and he's done a great job doing that. So let's be optimistic here.
Okay, we'll be optimistic, but there are people that support President Trump. There's plenty, up social media, you can imagine. There's plenty, the president sees it too. But even the ones that support him sometimes say you've got to at least some of the when Navarro is whispering in your ear, President Trump, about tariffs, you've got to realize that if it causes a slowdown, it could affect your reelection chances. Do you ever worry, since you're a supporter, that if you're too hawkish in this regard and try to accomplish too much with China, that we could slow here and it could impact the president's reelection?
Well, let's talk about my hawkishness, or my alleged hawkishness at this point. I mean, as you know, Joe, I published a book back in 2006 called The Coming China Wars. And today that reads like a normal government document. I mean, basically the way I described China 10 years ago was the way I think America perceives China today. There is a broad bipartisan support on Capitol Hill to get tough on China. And the American public, if you look at the polling, understands very clearly that we need to stand up to China's unfair trade. So I'm not understanding this hawkish point of view in terms of the fact that a lot of what I've said is now conventional wisdom. In terms of the Trump tariffs, I think they've been working beautifully. They're defending our steel and aluminum industries against a glut of overcapacity. Those industries are doing very well. President Trump used the Trump tariffs to get Mexico to do something within 2 weeks that nobody got him to do within 20 years on the border. I think that with respect to China, let's be clear about this, Joe. People need to understand this. The tariffs on China are our best defense against China's economic aggression and best insurance policy. This is the important thing, best insurance policy that China will continue to negotiate in good faith. So the Trump tariffs are working beautifully, and so that's okay. How we need to move forward.
Will there still be tariffs on in November of 2020?
I'm not going to speculate about that. Again, rule one, Lighthizer rule, behind closed doors, Joe.
Behind closed.
Lighthizer.
I know you're trying. I know you're trying to get me there, but look,
rule.
My view is today is a beautiful day here in Washington to get moving on the USMCA, and there's a lot of great bullish news. And I remember sitting with you the day after the election, telling that we were going to get to 25,000 on the Dow, and you chastised me because you said I was like I should have went to 30. So let's go to 30 today, Joe. Pass USMCA, get a rate cut from the Fed, get German fiscal stimulus, and this global economy is going to boom.
Okay.
Who snuck that in there? Was that Becky?
Becky.
Hey, Becky, you've been so restrained today. And Michael Santola, how you doing, friend?
All right, Peter.
He's doing good. All right, Peter Navarro, Thank you. We'll be President's probably watching too, but thank you.
I want to be an eagle, not a hawk. Okay.
Yeah.
American Eagles.
Yeah. Very good. All right. Thank you.